Greetings and welcome to Microsoft Excel 2013 Financial Functions, the PMT function. I think one of the most useful functions that Excel has is the PMT function. And this, what I mean is for everyday users of Excel. Most adults will take out a loan for a car. We don't necessarily pay cash for a car, and we certainly don't pay cash for a house. Most of us, at least, we have to take out a loan. And I think the PMT function allows us to kind of analyze how much of a car can I purchase? How much of a house can I purchase? So I've set up my first spreadsheet to deal with a car payment. And I've just started it off with a few information items on the sheet. Car price, if I put a down payment of cash, if I have a trade-in value, maybe I trade in another car. And we want to calculate what amount of the loan do I need. And then an annual interest rate is always kind of attached to that loan. The number of years I'll be paying on a car. And then, so how much is my payment? At the end of all of this, I want to figure out how much did my car really cost? And then how much interest did I pay for the lifetime of this loan? So I haven't been car shopping in a little while, but I have kind of looked online to see how much typical cars cost nowadays. And it looks like for, maybe a Toyota or a Hyundai, it's running about $27,000 to $32,000. So I'm going to say my car that I have in mind is about $28,500. Now my down payment, perhaps I can put down about $1,500 in cash. And I decide to trade in my old vehicle and they give me a whopping $750 for my car that's in working use, and they don't give you very much money for it, but I get a trade-in value of $750. So I want to know how much of a loan I need to take out. Well, my loan amount, I'm going to tell Excel to start doing some math, is going to be the car price minus the cash I gave them minus the trade-in value of the car that I gave them. Those are both credits. So my total amount of the loan is $26,250. But I want this to show up as debt. It's debt to me. I have to borrow that money. So it should be debt to me. It should be a negative number. So I'm just going to quickly put in a negative with parentheses around my formula that I have. So my dollar amount shows up as a negative number. That's what I'm in debt for. An annual interest rate is a percent cost that I'm going to pay on my loan. And I've just put in 10.5 for now. It's a little high, but maybe I have really bad credit and it's 10.5. Typical number of years to pay off a car nowadays, back in the good old days it used to be 2 or 3, but now we're getting up to 6 years is a standard loan amount. So using this information, I am going to calculate my payment. Now I need to think about one thing. When do I make a payment? Well, I would make a payment every month, but we're dealing with annual interest rate and number of years. So I need to be very careful about putting in my PMT formula the information correctly. So I'm going to start it off with equal PMT, open parentheses. Now it asks me for the rate. This rate is the interest rate, but since my value on my sheet is annual interest rate and I make a payment every month, then I'm going to use the annual interest rate and divide it by 12. That will give me a monthly interest rate. Now, NPR is number of payments. The number of payments is over the lifetime of the loan, how many payments I'm going to make. Well, the loan is for 6 years, but I make a payment every month, so I need to multiply it by 12. And my last thing I'm going to put in here is the present value. How much is the loan? The loan is $26,250, which I could just click on it. And the other two are optionals. Future value, by default it's 0, so I don't need to put anything in here. So I'll just leave it blank. I'll put another comma to move me over to the type. Now the type is going to be, do I make my payment at the beginning of the period, which remember we're paying monthly. So is it a payment at the beginning of the month or the end of the month? And if I don't know, I'm going to leave it blank. It's going to assume it's at the end of the period. I'm going to say I'm going to leave it blank. So I'm just going to close my parentheses. And if I buy a car for $28,500, I make a down payment of $1,500, and I trade in my other car for $750. I take out a loan for $26,250 at 10.5% interest for 6 years. My payment, my car payment, every month is going to be $492.95. Okay. So how much did this car really cost me? If I make a payment of $492.95, I'm going to multiply it by the number of payments I make, which was that 6 years times 12. This loan really cost me $35,492.25. Oof! Well, how much interest did I pay? This is going to be the cost plus my loan. Because it's already negative, I'm just adding the two of them together. The interest, what I had to pay back to the bank, was $9,242.25. Ouch! That was pretty expensive. But let's take a look at this and consider, well, maybe my interest rate was a little high. Maybe my interest rate was not 10.5%. Maybe it was 6.5%. Ah, that helped a little bit. That lowered my payment about $50 a month. And my cost, the car really cost $31,770 and change. And I only, I know I say that in jest, only paid $5,500 in interest. Now, what about if I had really great interest? I mean, if I had really great credit rating? Perhaps let's see, maybe I only had to pay 4% interest. Now my car payment is down to $410. What amount of car? Let's say I want to know, I really want my payment to be about $400. Maybe that's my budget, $400. And if all the rest of it remains the same, how much of a car could I afford? If I manipulate this car price, how much can I get my payment down to? Now, that Excel can do. That is a goal seek. So here's what I'm going to start my goal seek. I'm going to go to my data. I'm going to go to my what if analysis. I'm going to click on goal seek. I'm going to set my cell B7 because I want my payment be the value of $400. But I want to change my car price. So my payment I want to be $400. How much of a car can I afford? Keeping in mind, I'm still going to have a down payment of $1,500. I'm still going to have a trade-in value of $750. I'm going to say, Excel, find me how much car I can afford. Aha! It found it. I can afford $27,816.97. That will be my payment of $400. Okay? Kind of cool, huh? So if I want to make sure that I have a car payment of, let's say, even $300, let's go to what if analysis, goal seek, set cell, still my payment. I want to set it to $300, perhaps I can afford. I'm going to change my car price. I'm going to say, okay, remember annual interest is still 4%, everything else holds true. Aha, $21,425 is what I can afford. Okay? So this is kind of a really good tool before you go car shopping. How much of a car can I really afford before you get over your head? All right, that was great for a car payment. It's always nice to know how much can we afford before we walk on the lot to try and buy a car. Let's now talk about a house payment. And I want to know, how much of a house can I afford? And I know I'm going to put down 20%, whatever the house cost is, 20%, but I want to keep my payment in a particular range of values, let's say. My maximum amount of payment that I can afford. Now here's what I have. I've left the house price blank. I don't know how much of a house I can afford. The down payment is based on the price of the house, whatever Excel figures out, but it's 20%. So it's going to be so it's going to be the house price times 20%. 0.2 is 20%. And then my loan amount is going to be the house price minus the down payment. Okay, house price minus down payment. And I've made it negative so it shows up red that it's debt. You don't have to do that, but it's kind of nice to see it as debt. My annual interest rate is going to be, I don't know, 4.15 maybe. Yeah, that's a little high nowadays, but it's reasonable. Number of years, the typical house payment is for 30 years. And then the payment, I'm using the standard payment of, let me just highlight these things. It is the interest rate divided by 12 because I make a house payment every month. The number of years for the NPR is going, number of payments is going to be the number of years times 12 because again I make a payment every month. And then B4 is, the present value is the loan amount. Okay, that's all I need to know right now. It's going to assume that I want to pay off the loan. It's going to assume that I make a payment sometimes during the month. And then I want to figure out how much did the house payment really cost. It's going to be my payment times the number of my payment amount times the number of payments I make. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put Excel on task. How much of a house can I afford? What if analysis? Goal seek. I want to set my payment to, let's say I can afford, I have to consider there's taxes involved and there's interest involved, or insurance involved. So let's say I want $550 house payment. That would be about $1,000 out of my pocket every month with insurance and taxes. And I want to change the price of the house, so B2. I'm going to say, okay, go find it for me. Now you see, it's taking a little bit to figure it out, but right now it's $550 and I can afford $141,430 house with the down payment of nearly $28,000. But what happens if I can't put down 20%? Let's say I can only put down 10%. Let's see how much of a house I can buy then. Goal seek, set B7, my house payment, to $550. And I want to change the price of the house. And I say, okay, go find it. Wow. I'm going to say, okay, this time. So I can afford a $125,000 home as long as I put down $12,571 down, 10%. My loan amount is going to be $113. For 30 years, my payment is $550. But here's the interesting thing. How much did the house really cost me? $198,000. That's a big difference. How much interest did I pay? Interest. how much interest did I pay? That's going to be the house minus the loan or plus the loan. Wow, it's crazy to think about it, but the house cost me $125,000. To borrow that money, it cost me $85,000 nearly to borrow that money. It's a shocker, but that's basically how you use a house, or how you would calculate a house payment. There's one more thing I want to show you. And there are all kinds of tools out there on the internet. I did not build this web page or this Excel spreadsheet, but I wanted to show you a credit card payment calculator using Excel. And you'll see up here in the formula bar that formula is pretty complicated. But without understanding all of that, that's okay. I'm going to figure out if I use my credit card and I end up buying a computer for $2,500. And my interest rate is, I'm not going to say 14, that's I don't know. Let's say credit cards like to get you. So let's say it's 18%. I have to pay a minimum balance of 2%. And this was already set up for me. I just downloaded this, so it's kind of cool. And it says, hey, once your balance gets to be a certain amount, you have to pay a minimum payment, and that minimum payment is $25. That's usually how credit cards do it. My first payment looks like it's going to be $87.50. Hey, that's not bad. But here's how long. If I just pay that minimum payment, it's going to take me 8.33 years, 100 months to pay off that loan. And the total interest was $1,500. Right? And the cool part about this calculator is it breaks down every single payment. So you see the payment amount goes down because you do pay on your balance, but it's crazy. At this point, let's see, right here, the 63rd payment, that's about the 5-year marker. I got my balance to $700, so that was the minimum. I have to keep paying the $25 now. $25, $25, all the way until I pay it off at 100th month. It's crazy. This was kind of a cool thing to find out there on the web. It does a nice little graph of how's your payment versus your balance. And perhaps maybe you have a really bad credit card and you're now charged 21%. Well, now it takes you an extra couple of payments to pay it off by that different amount of interest. So anyway, I just thought I would share this with you. I thought it was kind of cool. I did just grab it from Vertex 42 online. Kind of cool if you want to try it out. It was a free download. So anyway, that's it for this lesson. Until next time, be seeing you.